Hello, Microcamp. This is Clifford Beshers, and I'm here to give a talk about how I post a photo every day and have fun doing so and without running myself into the ground. I've been doing it for about 6 years now, posting daily, though I've been posting digital photos for about 20 years, but the daily routine is about 6 years old. This talk came about because in January, a Micro.blog user announced he was going to do a daily photo challenge. And he said it like it was a diet, a New Year's resolution diet. And, I heard Rocky Bullwinkle's voice in my head going, "This time for sure, Rocky." And he sounded quite stressed about it. So I chimed in saying, keep a queue of photos. Don't try and shoot every day. Keep a queue of photos. This relieves a lot of stress. And he was surprised and grateful. And I think it's not that the idea of a queue is such a radical thing. The key notion is that when you set yourself up to do these things, sometimes you set out a bunch of rules in your head that I'm going to follow these rules. And that is what causes the stress. And the rules don't matter. It's the process of living through photography that is so valuable. But he got me started. But as a result of that conversation, I started thinking critically about how it is that I post a photo every day. It is fun. It's not a burden to me in any way. It was kind of when I started, but I quickly figured out ways to ease that tension. And I can tell you now that it's easier than it was when I started, and that the quality of my photo stream is far higher. I looked back at the last 3 years a couple of months ago, and it really gave me joy to revisit what had happened during that time. So I want to contrast what I do with many of us participated in the Micro.blog October Photo Challenge, the daily photo. And that is a construct where people suggest a single word and you have to come up with a photo that matches that word. And I call that a rule-based challenge. I did a lot of them early on Facebook when I was working with a group of people about learning photography. And this one, it comes from random directions. You get a random word and you have to go out and find a photo to match or create a photo to match. And I've done it twice and I've been exhausted at the end of each month, frankly. It is really hard because it requires you to be on point every day and think about something that's not in your daily life, right? And when I thought about the difference between what I do and this kind of photo challenge, I remembered very vividly doing a jigsaw puzzle at Christmas time when I was a kid. We did them all the time. We had good strategies for doing them. But I remember my uncle walking up and he picked up a piece at random, just dink. And we had the border done and a little bit of the edges filled in, but he just sat there with this one piece trying to figure out where it went. And if you've done any kind of jigsaw puzzles work, you know that gets you nowhere. The probability that you'll find that piece is very, very low. And you need a strategy, start at the edge, find colors, find distinctive shapes, and work your way through that. And the latter is basically what I do in producing a photo every day, or producing a photo to post every day. I don't actually produce a photo every day, and that's part of the point. So my daily posts are really the opposite of this kind of rule-based challenge. So I want to start with one of my favorite quotes from Dorothea Lange. She's the photographer who worked for the government photographing the Dust Bowl in the Depression era. and you may know her signature migrant mother and daughter photo. She said, "A camera teaches you how to see without a camera. It makes you look at the world, and to get a good photograph, you have to understand what you're looking at. You can't just point anywhere. You have to think about how it happens." So my goal is to, with it, photography keeps me connected to the world. It also keeps me connected to my emotions, and because good photographs have some of your emotions in them. And I tend to be, mathematically oriented and shove the emotions aside. And this gives me a place to bring them out when I want to. And it also, posting them is a really good way to stay connected with people I know from my past and new people I don't know. And just, it keeps me connected to people. So that's the sort of rubric of why and how I do this. The things I do not do may be as important. I avoid all photography dogma. If you walk up to me and say the word rule of thirds, I just turn you out. That's not interested. I don't try and amplify the number of clicks or followers or eyeballs. I don't do anything that restricts my freedom of thought. I don't try to monetize, and I especially do not get any contractual obligations. I have mad respect for professional photographers. Many of you know Mike on this forum, and he goes out and goes off to TV sets and shoots things and comes up with things on the clock. That's also very much the opposite of what I do, and I would be dead in a heartbeat if I tried that. So I thought very hard about how it is that I produce so many photos so easily. And I get good response to them. And I'm, more than importantly to me than that, when I looked over my timeline for the last 3-4 years, this is the first time I've ever really been satisfied with the photos that I've produced. And so I think the repetition has been really good for my photography. So I figured out that I do things in 4 distinct phases. I shoot, I do some basic editing, I put it away, I come back, I do some final editing, and I do, at that point, some candidate selection. That is, I decide if something is good enough to post. And I export the images at that point. So basically, I have a folder of recent images that haven't been posted. Each day, I get up and I look in that folder and I choose a photo and I write a caption. So the beginning of the process is spontaneous and creative. The end of the process is spontaneous and creative, although constrained a little bit. And the middle is just spread out so that it's not an onerous process and I get some reflection time along the way. Shooting or capturing the images is the highest priority. And by that I mean it is the thing I enjoy most. And it is the only phase here that can overtake anything else. If I could be working on a high value project for work with a deadline of 2 hours away, but if a thunderstorm comes through, I pick up the camera and go outside. So it's the only thing that will displace work. And that's what I mean by highest priority. And I don't plan photo shoots. I shoot opportunistically. If I have the whim, if the weather is good, if I'm someplace that is particularly exciting, then I always have a camera with me, and I tend to always have my SLR with me. And the primary trigger for me is interesting light. I mean, this is a lesson you hear every photographer say, that light is the key. And painfully over the years, I have learned this, and now I may see an interesting composition, I may take the shot for reference for later, but I really wait for later when the light is good to come back and take it. If the cats are wandering around or visiting and wandering around the house, and they're just sleeping in a dark corner, I don't bother getting out a camera. It's when they sit in the morning sun, that's when whatever I'm doing, I drop it down, pick up the camera, and I do my shooting there. So when I see something that excites my visual cortex, boom, I try and make that high priority, and I grab a bunch of photos. And in general, I don't schlep gear. I don't take out flashes and fills and tripods, and only what I really, really need, which is mostly a really 18 to 300 zoom lens and a macro lens, and that's largely what I do, and a polarizing filter. That's about it. The second stage is basic editing, and I do that in off hours at night, often at night because I have a lot of windows and the glare is terrible during the day. So I wait till night when I couldn't be doing anything else outside. And I often wait 3-4 days, so several shooting sessions may collect. And I just do them whenever it's convenient. And most of the software have 5 stars for rating photos. And it took me a long time to come down to a method for using those stars. And when I finally settled on one, actually having it stick was the most important thing. It isn't so much that this particular method is the best, it's just that it's the one that I settled on. So what I use is 1 star for a bad photo, but a subject I want to revisit. 2 for an okay photo that I might publish in a pinch. 3 for a good photo, and if I rank it 3, then I do some basic editing on it. And the basic editing consists of crop and contrast adjustment, usually. First local and then global contrast. Maybe some color correction if it's required. Any other edits? Basically, if I get a one-time shot of Bigfoot, then I'm going to try and save that particular photo. Anything else, if I have to do more than that, I throw the photo away and I go back and take it another day. I'm a software engineer. I spend enough of my life in front of a computer. The whole point of the camera is to get me outside. Then there's sometime later, after a break, there's a final edit and candidate selection session. In that, if I really like a photo, I bump it up to 4 and I export it. 4 stars, and I export it into that folder that is the queue. If it's really extraordinary, I think I want to print it, I bump it to 5 stars, and that's it. And then the day of each day, I get up and I look at that queue, and there's often the queue, the file, those images have been in the queue for several days, so I may have forgotten about them. So again, I look at them with a fresh eye, and decide which one interested me that day. And often I read the timeline and see what other people are doing, and I look at what I was doing yesterday, and I pick something spontaneously, and I write something spontaneously. And I try to give enough context that my 85-year-old stepmother will not be confused about what this is a photo of and where it goes, and I try not to be too cute, and I just try and let a little emotion and a little gratitude flow into the comments, and that's about it. The things that are not allowed are burdens. If I ever find myself thinking, this photo isn't good enough for this crowd, or, I should really, any kind of burden, I immediately ban that. And I try and switch to, what are you really feeling and what is motivating you this day, and how can you communicate that in the photo? Again, throw away the rules, right? Focus on fun, communication, all that sort of thing. And I titled this talk Cadence and Counterpoint or Counterbalance. I went back and forth on that. The cadence is the daily photo, but it's a complex rhythm, right? This 4-phase thing, those phases act like gears or like lubricant. They fit they let this process, which is fairly regular and metronomic, fit into my life without disruption. It's easy to stay on this rhythm. Sometimes I'm pedaling madly because the weather is great, and so I'm out there, I'm out there shooting, and I get 300 photos, of which I may want to post 50 of them. And then I go days when I don't see anything. Doesn't matter. I have enough in the queue that I can always pull something out that is recent. It's not today, but it's rarely more than a week old, or almost never 2 weeks old. And as counterpoint, work takes priority, except when the landscape is exceptional, and then I go and I shoot that. And then work takes priority again. But you need breaks from work, and processing photos and thinking about what I'm feeling that day when I look at the photo, that makes for really good breaks. And I find that I'm refreshed to go back to work, which takes priority. But if I look at the photo stream and I see a lot of repetition, then I know that I've put the balance too much on work and I need to leave the house for an extended period of time and go someplace interesting and collect new and interesting photos. I think the best example of this came when I moved into this amazing house in this amazing place. I was lucky enough to find a place that's in the wilderness, an affordable house with amazing views. And I know you guys are going to kill me when I say this. I have a fiber optic line to my house. So all those photos that you see of Mount Tom and everything, I take them from the house. And when I moved here, I moved in June, and 3 months of catching up with work, furnishing the house, getting ready for guests, learning how to work a swamp cooler. It was hotter than hell. I had, it was a big, busy 3 months. And I took a ton of landscape photos because I was new here, and I was just, I was completely swooning at the landscape. It was why I moved here, really. But in the doldrums of late August, the sky is always sunny. There are no clouds. It's frankly boring. It's just searing hot. And I ran out of photos to take. And I was in a sudden panic that I had moved to this remote location and really to have access to landscape photos. And it took me a few days to realize what was wrong. I'd been so busy, and the views here are so prolific. I thought, you would find more photos if you went further than the deck. I was housebound. I was really exhausted, and I was housebound. And it was looking at the daily photo stream that told me, oh, yeah, things are boring. You need to move. You need to go find a space that is new and different. And that is, around here, really not a difficult thing. So it keeps me in touch with the world. It keeps me balanced. It keeps me from sitting in the desk chair too many days. And it gives me something to look back on. I hope everybody's had a really good micro camp. This was a lot of fun to go through, and I've been enjoying the micro.blog community. This is Clifford Beshers signing off, taking questions.